Welcome to the Real Estate Show with your hosts Terry Kalakos and Chantel Desjardins, your only source for all of your real estate and mortgage questions. In this episode, Terry explains what are the acceptable income sources when applying for a home mortgage in Canada.
So, besides hosting giant parties, Terry's telling us about the mortgage financing triangle. We discussed credit, we discussed equity, and today we're closing out with income. Let's talk about self-employed people. What type of income is accepted?
Okay, so there's two types of self-employed people. There's the ones that declare the revenue and the ones that don't.
Oh, the
Okay.
sneaky ones, right?
Well, let's go back to that consultant, right? So he's earning $100,000 a year, and let's assume that he has a creative accountant that's able to write off everything. So from his $100,000, what he's actually showing on his notice of assessment is $15,000 or $20,000, which is very common, by the way, for self-employed people.
Sure.
That's what they do. The problem is when you go and apply for a mortgage, what the bank is going to look at, they're going to look at your 15,000. They're not going to look at your 100. Even though you think that they're going to look at that, they're not going to look at it. So that would be an example of someone that does not declare their revenues. There is still a program available for people like that. It's called the Alt-A program. Okay, so it's an alternative A lending product, and it allows you to do an auto declaration. Your credit has to be on the stronger side, plus you need to put a minimum of 10% down payment when you're buying. This program is not available if you want to refinance your mortgage, but it is available for purchases. And the maximum number of units that you could be going into is 2. So you can only buy as much a duplex. We can gross up the revenues, or we can state revenues as needed to make the file work, but it has to make sense. If the gross revenues of the company are $100,000 and we need $200,000, it's not going to work. Ça va pas marcher l'affaire, right? So it's gonna fall apart.
Right.
Then there's the other type of self-employed person who actually declares their revenues. So they have a company, they write off whatever needs to be written off, and then they'll say, you know what, I made 100 after my deductions and stuff like that. I'm at 80,000 or 85,000, whatever. That's good. We'll use the 80,000. We are able to do a little bit of a gross up on that income, usually about 15%, depending on the institution that we go with, and you'll be good to go. And you can put 5% down, and it's like as if you're a normal employee
Right.
at that point. So it's important to make that distinction. And then there's the other type of self-employed person which gets paid on dividends. If you're getting paid on dividends, and as a matter of fact, if you're a self-employed person that's declaring the revenue, the way that the bank is going to confirm that revenues is by looking at the last 2 years' notice of assessment. So they're going to want to make sure that you have a track record of actually receiving that income. If you have over the last 2 years, let's say in 2015 you earned $100,000, and then the year after you earned $75,000, the income that the bank is going to use is 75. But if it was reversed and it was 75 and 100, what they're going to do is they're going to add the two together, divide them by 2, so take an average, and that'll be the income that they're going to use.
So what happens if you don't declare enough? Like how do you
Well,
what's your answer if you're
so I've had clients. We're not going to mention what ethnicity because I'm one of them. And they come in and they're like, I have this restaurant, and no, I hope I'm not offending anyone right now as I'm saying it, but I am Greek, so whatever. Anyways, so I have this restaurant, and my restaurant makes millions of dollars a year, but you know what? I only declare $1,000 at the end of the year, and I look at them and I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Besides the fact that Revenue Quebec's going to come and give you a government
kick in the butt.
or a government funded colonoscopy. Okay, sorry to say it like that, but it's this is the reality of it. You're not going to be able to get financing. You're not going to be able to do a mortgage. You're not going to be able to do this. And a lot of times they've been misguided by their accountants to declare as little as possible. And they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, you know what? I'm sure there's a way if we pay for the mortgage, if we do this, if we do that, for you to get this done. And I look at them and I'm like, with all due respect, it doesn't work like that. I'm not interested in, collecting bribes from people and getting mortgages done. I always tell them, instead of having to pay people to go out and get your mortgages done, why don't you declare more revenue, pay that money to the government, and you'll be good to go.
Right.
Right? It's just, it doesn't make sense to me. But it's just a matter of people being a little misguided by the professionals that they're using.
And for how many years before, like, you could even sort of plan for that, right? If you're-
Absolutely.
so-
Definitely.
So what, 2 years?
2 years. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, you want to buy a property, you need to refinance, you need to do something, just plan for a couple of years. Meet with someone that actually knows what they're talking about and set yourself up.
Any other advice for self-employed
Um,
individuals?
Declare your revenues.
That's it. That's the big one.
Declare your revenues as much as you possibly can. Offset those revenues by, other means, buy RSPs, do whatever needs to use other tax strategies, but do not just say, well, you know what, I make 100,000, so I'm going to write it all off until
Right.
I'm down to 10,000.
Yeah.
So I could be below the poverty line. It doesn't make sense.
We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay on top of the latest changes in the real estate and mortgage industry. Stay informed. Subscribe to our channel today.